Hello. So I am going to do a quick video on setting up the repository for this week. I haven't forgotten about week one. I'm just putting first things first here since you all should be working on this. And I know I'm setting a bad example because it's Wednesday and I'm just starting this, but you all should have already gotten this far. So, but I'm going to show you how to put it on Git and GitHub. So throughout the videos, Mane suggests doing a Git. This is a good time to do a commit, and so on and so forth. So I ask you to please try to do that. It is optional, but I want to encourage you to consider it as mandatory just for the practice and for the importance of GitHub that I discussed in the last video. So right now I'm just going to set up my remote repository. So this is my local. All I've done is create an empty folder called new React W2 or week 2. Okay, so I'm going to set up my remote repository. So this is going to be nu-react-w2. I'm going to create the repository. Okay, so with React, it's a bit of a different animal. So what I'm going to do is, so you should have already done this. You need to install, and I don't want to confuse you more. So you do need Yarn to run create React app. But what I'm talking about in terms of NPM is when we add stuff later and when we do the start, use NPM commands. I ask you to use NPM instead of Yarn. So this is the command we run to create a React app. I'm going to do this a little bit different though. So I'm going to paste this, and instead of it being campsite, I want to create my React app in the directory that I'm in. Okay, so I'm just going to say dot, which means create, instead of creating an entirely new directory that contains my React app, I want it to build my React app inside this directory. So that's what the dot means. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to create a React app, and I'm going to pause the video because it takes a few minutes. So I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so it finished. So the reason this is a little different from what I did in the last video is that when you run create React app, it automatically sets up a lot of the Git stuff for you. Okay, so as you can see, it already says this means basically that there is a .git directory and that Git is already tracking this. So that's something that create React app will do. Sometimes it doesn't work. So if it didn't work for you, don't panic. It's fixable. But you'll see that all this that was generated, aside from the node modules, the public folder, the source directory, and all that stuff, it created a .git file and it created a .gitignore file. Okay, so .gitignore, we'll go into that another time because that's a whole different animal. But so the .git file is basically, like I said in the last video, tracks everything for you. So to find out what's going on, if you just run git status, it'll say, so it's basically done up to this part for you. It's already made your first commit. Okay, and again, it may not have done a commit for you. If it didn't, don't freak out. So you can just start where you need to start, and I'll go over that with you individually if it didn't work out. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and do this because I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to all that did was change the name of my master branch from the politically inappropriate term master to the more neutral main. Okay, so from this point I'm just going to sorry, it's not working. So I'm going to this tells my local repository about the remote repository. So this is just a HTTPS endpoint. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it in here, okay, and then hit enter. So if nothing happens, no news is good news, that means it worked, okay? So now the last thing I'm going to do is push this to the remote. Okay, so once I do this, again, if I refresh the page, nothing happens. Okay, but after I run the git push, oops, there we go. Now when I run that, this is what the step that's actually sending my repository over the internet to GitHub, and it is basically storing it on GitHub. So now when I refresh the page, you'll see that my React app is there. Okay. If I click view code, then you can see the public, the source. You'll notice that the node modules folder isn't there, and I'll talk more about that later, but that's basically because of the .git ignore. The Git modules folder is huge, takes up a lot of space, so as a way of saving space, it adds the node modules folder right here. It says don't track this. Okay, yeah. So now there it is. It's on GitHub, and at this point you should be able to run npm start, and this will automatically open up in your default browser the default or the smoke signal, whatever you want to call it, React app. So this is what you should see if everything worked properly. Okay, so in an effort to keep these videos short, I'm going to go ahead and stop right here, and I will go on in the next video to show you how to make branches. So hope that helped, and happy coding.